Hey folks, how you all doing? This is Con over coming to you with another, let's say, tactical talk with Company of Heroes 2. First off, I do want to thank Mr. Awesome is here because as usual he's going to be helping me out with this little bit of a video. And you do see that right now we are looking at the USF. And why is that? Well, folks, simply that's because today we're going to talk about something that all of us is running up against as Axis players, the USF meta. So first what we're going to do is tell you what it is, why it works, and then we're going to kind of give you a couple of ideas on how to kind of fight it. So if you are ready and tired of losing to the Germans, losing as the Germans, settle down, have a cup of tea. I'll show you how to take out the USF meta. So the backbone of the USF meta is of course the good old-fashioned rifleman. These squads by themselves outfight pretty much every bit of their earlier counterparts in the Axis. Volks Grenadiers can't stand up to them. Grenadiers aren't as cost effective. And frankly, the riflemen are just better well-rounded. Why is that though? Well, let's see. First we have the opportunity of picking up the M1919, the BAR, and the bazooka, which gives them any kind of versatility that the Germans can't give to their troops. And add in the fact too that riflemen just scale better as the game progresses, and really you have a very, very much a good strong backbone to any winning force. The second thing added into that particular part of this hell kind of meta is the good old-fashioned mortar. Now what does the mortar do? The mortar obviously is indirect fire, but any kind of machine gun or any kind of immediate garrison being taken that the rifleman can't take, well, that's what you have the mortar for. The mortar just kind of comes in, just starts dropping rounds on top of the garrison, and really starts to dominate a battle space way better and way more completely than any other of their, and then than the German counterparts yet again. And of course, the major part, no pun intended, of this particular build is the captain. While the early part of a meta USF game is to basically use tier 1 infantry and indirect support to keep you pinned down, it's this guy right here that really is kind of the swing personnel in the build. Now, why is that? Well, first things first, the captain does allow these troops right here to get rid of suppression whenever they pretty much want to, every 45 seconds. Of course, this is after Vet 1 is achieved, mostly because of the use of the ability on me. Now, where are they? Right over here. But even more so than that, the captain can be upgraded with a bazooka and give the United States forces a good amount of soft AT, really at a premium of a cost. But the nail in the coffin, though, is this particular beauty right here. He may look hideous right now with this particular skin, but don't let that fool you. This, of course, is the Stuart, and the Stuart is pretty much what either seals the deal or makes everything perfect for the United States meta. Well, now, why is that the case? Well, the Stuart is probably arguably the best light vehicle and comes out super, super quick with the right build order. It can outshoot a P2 pretty easily. A 222 can barely dent the armor on this bad boy right here. And once it has a little bit of veterancy, this Stuart can become quite a fearsome foe, even as late as seeing the main battle tanks in the later part of the game. All this combines to have riflemen going out, just harassing your territories like crazy. The mortar dropping rounds whenever you have a static position that can safely fight off these particular riflemen. The rear echelons running around, dropping mines, detecting your mines, throwing up defenses, so that way you can't really do anything about it. And the captain, who is chilling down here with his lieutenant comrade, who of course carries that bazooka and gives support to the Stuart without really any additional cost to the United States forces. Well, what's to be done then from the German side? What can they do to safely stave off this very, very effective fighting force? Well, while I hopefully ask you guys to ignore the pioneers building the veritable west wall over here in sandbags, this is that backbone that can really, really give you a leg up on the United States meta. Now, these guys right here, of course, the German machine gun, the MG42, whether it's the MG34 for the OKW or the MG42 for the Wehrmacht, these guys can lock down a good portion of the map, allowing your own troops a little bit of breathing room when the inevitable squads of riflemen come in. Now, the problem with that, of course, is that if there's any kind of mortar and if the United States players any kind of, skill, the mortar's just going to come up and start dropping rounds on top of you, or the riflemen are going to drop smoke grenades and rush in, or any number of issues. Well, that's when this guy over here, who's all cloaked up, when he comes into play. This right here, of course, is the sniper, and this guy could be a devastating force to the early US meta, simply because he allows the German player to bleed manpower away, or at least the Wehrmacht player to bleed manpower away from his opposing number. The US meta relies very much on staying slim, not taking a whole lot of losses. Please ignore the Major as he runs through. He's just kind of there inspecting the troops. But on not taking a bunch of losses and very, very much rushing out these 6 units, which is great if you can manage it. It's a little more difficult if you're losing squads, if you're losing models within all of your squads, and that's very much what the rifleman does. What the sniper does for the Germans. A word of caution, though, the sniper should never ever be used on his own. Without any kind of support, whether it's grenadiers or machine gun to fall back on, the sniper must be microed well, and very much can be a double-edged sword for most German players. It's a significant investment, or else you're just going to put yourself further and further behind. I've asked Mr. Awesomeness here to put a machine gun into one of these god houses on Engelville. You can see these guys right there in the window waiting for their targets to come into view. You even do see some pioneers moved up in support for them. Now, in the early part of the game, this is great. I mean, having this particular machine gun right here will be able to chase off and suppress any riflemen that come close to them. Unfortunately, though, like I said, with the addition of this mortar, that house right there is going to fall down very, very quickly, losing models, losing health, and pretty much losing the squad if the Germans aren't particularly careful. What's more, even meeting engagements between early infantry with the captain, even against the captain who sacrifices a bit of his firepower due to the bazooka, won't trade it very well for the Germans, that is anyway, if there's a mortar on hand to be dropping rounds on top of the German position. You do see already, one of these grenadier squads has lost 75% of its health pretty much immediately, lost all its cover, dropped 75% of its models now, and drops the squad super, super quick. Yes, they've done well enough to chase back one squad, but they've sacrificed a lot of manpower to do it. How could that engagement go better, though, for the Germans? Even if we include that sniper. Sniper is a little bit far up, as opposed to being a little bit better supported by his own troops. But at the same time, while the Germans fix the American advance, the sniper can safely pick them off from the side. Being in the shadow of the house as well does permit the sniper to either jump into a garrison or jump out, or to get away really from most mortar rounds. Now, I've talked to you a little bit about opportunities for the Germans to kind of counter the US meta by bleeding them dry, by slowing them down, by harrying different territories. But what do you do if you've fallen behind so much that you have not been able to limit your opponent's fuel economy? For the Wehrmacht, you really only have a couple of options, and one of those lies in this right here. This is the Puma. The Puma can trade, actually, it's one of the few light vehicles, or lighter vehicles, that can trade very well against an early Stuart rush. The alternative to that is building a couple of anti-tank guns, but as we'll see probably in the next clip, anti-tank guns have their own issues to deal with. Now, bringing in the Puma by extension could be much, much better for the German player. Unfortunately, even then, the Puma needs to make sure that he's always supported, or else that happens. It seems like the Germans get kind of a raw deal when dealing with the US meta, but the Wehrmacht, the plan's very simple for the Wehrmacht and has basically maintained the same thing since the meta began. Harass your opponent, use either support weapons or very, very much specialist roles to bleed and limit your opponent's spread, and pretty much how quickly he can get his entire build up. A well-used sniper can push back at a 7 or 8 minute Stuart to as late as 11 or 12 minutes, giving you more than enough time as a German player to get your own fuel economy in order, and once you manage to have heavier tanks in the field like a Strug, your position's a little bit better. I won't say it's perfect because the late game brings with it its own set of challenges, but getting a light, let's say a light anti-tank, a mobile anti-tank presence on the field should put you in good stead in the long term, and hopefully can lead you to conclusions like this. Again, I cannot reiterate this enough. Don't try to fight the early US forces in a head-on fight. Their early game is much, much better than the Germans, even if the Germans are forced to be more aggressive. Play for the late game. Try to make sure that you keep enough of your forces alive until you can bring in main tanks, or at least heavier tank-destroying threats. The United States meta is a fearsome, fearsome build. But take heart, it is possible to be beaten. If I were to suggest something, I suggest you try building 2 early grenadiers, then trooping in a sniper to kind of bleed and support your infantry as it comes up into head-on engagements with the USF. Deflect, harass, take points where the US isn't. Try to locate the fuel stocks on the map and cap those out. And then play for the late game. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. I appreciate you checking out this video. I do hope it's helped you a little bit. Of course, again, a big thank you to Mr. Awesome is here. He is a good sport, even if he's a little bit eccentric sometimes. You do see, for example, the Pioneer platoon over here just putting back together this Puma. If you like what you see, please leave a comment, subscribe, like everything you want to do. Let me know, guys, and I will see you all soon. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great day. This is Connorworks signing off.